Hey, good morning, church. Hope you guys are having a great morning so far. So as you know, we're starting through the book of Proverbs, and we're into Proverbs 13 today. And so Proverbs 13 is a continuation of what we see from about chapter 10 to about chapter 23, as we see Solomon writing a bunch of just one-off sentences. We see multiple sentences, multiple verses per chapter, and this one's got 25 verses in it, so 25 different sentences. We see a bunch of different just one-off sentences of some sort of wisdom. And so the majority of what you see throughout mainly 10 through 23 is you see something but something. You see a very similar structure to all of the sentences. You see comparing and contrasting two different, very opposite points of view, right? And so in verse 13, the main three that I found was wisdom versus a foolish. We see righteous versus unrighteous, and we see rich versus poor. And so I know, like, going through the book of Proverbs, especially through these chapters, it gets really hard to focus. It gets really hard to pay attention and see what's going on. And so, I bet, I do this a lot. I was reading through this, and my mind just started to wander. I mean, I've had a hard time focusing on 25 different sentences that feel like they don't correlate. They don't go together at all. But what really helped me is just take a step back. And so instead of looking at the verse individually, trying to break it down word by word and trying to get something out of each sentence, just kind of step back and look at the chapter as a whole. And so, like I said, I see those three main points of view, or main points in here. So start off in verse 1, it says, "A wise son responds to his father's discipline, but a mocker doesn't listen to rebuke." And so there we see that structure I was talking about. We see a wise son, and then it says, but a mocker. So you can really kind of replace that but with verses, a wise son versus a mocker, right? And so here we see the good. A wise son responds to his father's discipline. Obviously, that is good. And this could be an earthly father or a heavenly father. It's not capitalized, but if you take it as a heavenly father, then it's that much better, right? And then, but a mocker doesn't listen to rebuke, right? And so there was one of the wisdom side, right? And so then you look at verse 4, then we get to kind of see righteous versus unrighteous. We see verse 4 says, "The slacker craves yet has nothing, but the diligent is fully satisfied." So there we see slacker and diligent. And so there's a bunch of different words that they use. And so slacker and diligent can really go back to righteous and unrighteous. The slacker craves, diligent is fully satisfied, right? And verse 5, same way. "The righteous hate lying, but the wicked act disgustingly and disgracefully." So there we see righteous but the wicked. Righteous versus the wicked, right? And then verses 7 and 8 are towards money, right? So verse 7 says, "One man pretends to be rich but has nothing. Another pretends to be poor but has great wealth." 8 says, "Riches are a ransom for a man's life, but a poor man hears no threat," right? And so throughout the rest of the chapter, you see the same comparing and contrast. Through most of the book of Proverbs, you see this compare and contrast between these different types of topics. And chapter 13 really, in my opinion, looks mainly talking about righteous, wisdom, and rich versus poor, right? And so, like I said, I know it gets really difficult to just read these different sentences and these one-off sentences. It feels like they have nothing to do together. But, like I said, just take a step back, or even find one that really resonates with you. I like the verse 1. That one really resonated with me. The wise son responds to his father's discipline, but a mocker doesn't listen to rebuke. And the main part that resonated with me is a wise son responds to his father's discipline. When God disciplines us, we need to listen, right? And so even if you read through the chapter and you take a step back and you're still not really getting the full picture, you can even just take a single verse like that, memorize it. And, Josh Sunday challenged us to memorize a verse a week. You memorize just one of these. You memorize one of these, then you're automatically gaining a lot of wisdom, and it doesn't matter if you have the whole chapter or just a single verse. God works through it, and I get it. It gets difficult, but just take a verse or step back and take a look. So I hope you guys, you read through this and you either find a verse. I challenge you guys to memorize one of these verses in this chapter today. And so I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. God bless.